Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever it might happen to be for you again today. We are back. It is once again story time. Today is a bit of a fun one for me because the character in the story today was actually a player character, and it was actually one of my player characters in a game that I got to play about 8 years ago. I really enjoyed him as a player character. The game didn't last quite as long as I had hoped that it would. So I made a couple adjustments to his story, worked him into the world of Olyndar, and set him back up as an NPC in the world. Now, is our group going to meet him this time around? Will they, will they not? Who knows? But, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of his background here today, and if they meet him in the future, great. If not, at least I will have gotten to share this little bit of fun today with you. So enjoy the story, and I will catch up with you soon. In the heart of Alum, where smokestacked factories towered over cobblestone streets, and the hum of machinery replaced the melody of magic, the Mamonkin family ruled their empire of commerce with ruthless precision. The family was celebrated for its sharp business acumen and respected for its contributions to Alum's thriving industrial economy. Whispers of infernal ties, stemming from their name and uncanny ability to always land on the winning side of negotiations, were treated as an inside joke by the Mamonkins themselves. At dinner parties and in the halls of power, Elisar Mamonkin, the family patriarch, would quip about selling his soul for a good ledger balance, earning polite laughter from peers who dismissed the rumors as baseless. For Benizbalil Mamonkin, the youngest of Elisar's 5 children, the joke never quite sat right. Growing up in the shadow of his father's towering expectations and his siblings' relentless competition, Ben learned early that the Mamonkin name carried more weight than the family let on. While his brothers and sisters maneuvered to secure their places in the family hierarchy, Ben was relegated to the role of the expendable youngest son, useful perhaps as a scapegoat or as leverage in some future scheme. Ben spent his childhood observing the calculated dealings of his father and siblings, absorbing lessons in manipulation and negotiation that no tutor could ever teach. He quickly learned that information was the most valuable currency, and secrets were worth more than gold. It was this realization, coupled with a gnawing frustration at his insignificant role in the family, that set Ben on the path to rebellion. The decision to leave came on a particularly cold evening. Ben, then 17, had just returned from the family's factory district, where Elisar had tasked him with overseeing a minor shipping dispute. The issue had been resolved, not through Ben's authority, but through the intervention of his eldest brother, Tarmik, who arrived just in time to take credit for the solution. As Ben rode back to the family estate in a steam-powered carriage, his mind churned with anger and resentment. He had done the work, yet Tarmik's name would appear on the ledgers. It was a reminder of his place in the family, a pawn forever overshadowed by his siblings. That night, as the Mamonkins gathered in their opulent dining hall, Ben's mind was elsewhere. The family's wealth was on full display, from the polished mahogany table to the intricate clockwork chandelier that illuminated the room. Elisar sat at the head of the table, his sharp eyes surveying his children as they reported on their respective duties. Ben remained silent, his gaze fixed on the plate before him. When his turn came, he offered a brief summary of the shipping dispute, only for Elisar to nod curtly and move on to Tarmik, who delivered a far more elaborate account of the same event. After dinner, as the family dispersed, Ben lingered in the shadows of the estate's grand library. He had often sought solace there, poring over ledgers and maps, studying the intricacies of trade routes and supply chains. But that evening, his thoughts were consumed by the realization that he would never rise within the family. His father's favor was unattainable, and his siblings would never allow him to surpass them. If he wanted a future, he would have to take it for himself. The plan formed over the next few days. Ben's father kept a private study, accessible only to him and his most trusted steward. It was there that Elisar stored the family's most valuable documents: deeds, contracts, and ledgers that represented the true extent of the Mammonkin Empire. Ben knew that if he could access the study, he could secure enough wealth to fund his escape, and perhaps gain leverage over his father in the process. On the night of his departure, Ben waited until the household was asleep. The estate's halls were silent, save for the faint ticking of clockwork mechanisms embedded in the walls. He moved carefully, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpets. The lock on his father's study was a complex device, designed by one of Alam's finest engineers. But Ben had spent weeks studying its design, even constructing a crude replica to practice on in secret. With trembling hands, he inserted a set of improvised tools into the lock. Minutes passed like hours as he worked, every click of the mechanism echoing in his ears. Finally, the lock yielded with a soft click. Ben pushed the door open and slipped inside, closing it quietly behind him. The study was a treasure trove of wealth and power. Shelves lined with bound ledgers towered above a massive desk, which bore a carefully arranged assortment of documents. Ben worked quickly, selecting the most valuable items: deeds to properties, contracts for lucrative trade agreements, and a small chest of gold coins. Among the documents, he found something unexpected: a leather-bound journal marked with the Mammonkin sigil. Curiosity overcame him, and he opened it to find pages filled with cryptic notes and references to meetings with unnamed figures. One passage in particular caught his eye. "The pact remains intact. The Faceless Council honors their end, as shall we. The legacy of Mammon endures." A chill ran down Ben's spine. He had always dismissed the rumors of infernal ties as mere jest, a convenient myth to explain the family's success. But the journal suggested otherwise. Clutching the journal and his other spoils, he left the study and made his way to the servants' quarters, where he had hidden a travel pack beneath the floorboards. By dawn, Ben was on the road, his stolen wealth hidden beneath his cloak. He traveled by foot for several days, avoiding the main trade routes where his father's agents might search for him. Each night, as he camped beneath the stars, he pored over the journal, piecing together the fragments of a conspiracy that stretched far beyond his family's fortune. A month into his flight from Alum, Ben's journey took a turn he could never have anticipated. He had set up camp on a secluded stretch of road flanked by dense forest, his small fire crackling in the stillness of the night. The stolen gold lay in a leather pouch by his side, and in his hands was a tattered ledger he had taken from his father's office, an innocuous-looking journal, but one Ben felt certain held secrets that could unravel the mystery of the Mammonkin fortune. As he counted the last of the coins, the fire flared with an intensity that sent him scrambling backward. The flames turned an eerie shade of green, casting unnatural shadows that twisted and writhed like living things. The air grew heavy with the scent of sulfur and molten metal, and a voice rumbled from the darkness, low and impossibly smooth. "Ben Hezboleel Mammonkin," it said, each syllable dripping with malice and mockery. "Did you think you could escape your legacy?" Ben froze, his pulse hammering in his ears. He scanned the surrounding darkness, but there was no one, only the strange flickering shadows cast by the unnatural flames. The voice chuckled, a sound like coins spilling across marble. He found himself standing in a vast chamber, its vaulted ceiling disappearing into a golden haze. The floor beneath his feet was polished obsidian, and surrounding him were towering piles of wealth. Gold coins cascading like waterfalls, chalices encrusted with gems, and ornate treasures crafted by hands long forgotten. The air shimmered with an oppressive metallic warmth. Before Ben could react further, the world around him warped. The trees, the fire, the stars, they all melted away as though swept aside by an unseen hand. At the center of this opulent vault stood a figure cloaked in shadow. Its form shifted and warped, never settling into a single shape, but its presence was undeniable. It radiated power and authority, and though its face was obscured, Ben felt the weight of its gaze, piercing, all-knowing, and deeply invasive. "You have taken what is mine," the figure intoned, its voice reverberating through the chamber like a tolling bell. "And in doing so you have bound yourself to truths you cannot yet comprehend. Ben's throat went dry. He clutched the journal tightly to his chest as though it could shield him. Who are you?" he stammered, his voice barely audible. The figure laughed, a deep, resonant sound that sent shivers down Ben's spine. "I am Mammon," it said, "the Lord of Greed, the architect of ambition, and the true architect of your family's fortune. The Mammonkin name is not mere coincidence, boy. It is a legacy, a bond forged long before your kind drew breath." Ben's legs buckled, and he dropped to his knees, the journal slipping from his grasp. "That's not true," he said, though his voice wavered with doubt. "It's just a name. A joke my family plays to mask the truth," Mammon interrupted, his tone sharp and cutting. "Your father plays his games well, I'll grant him that, but you, Ben Hezbolil, you are different. You sought freedom, yet you have stumbled into the very heart of the web. And now you stand before me. Do you understand what that means?" Ben shook his head, his mind racing. "I don't want anything to do with you," he managed, forcing the words out. Mammon stepped closer, his form growing larger, more solid. The air around Ben grew suffocating, thick with the smell of gold and brimstone. "Ah, but you already do," Mammon said, his voice silky and insistent. "You see, the gold you stole? The secrets in that journal, they are mine. They always have been, and by taking them, you have invited me into your life. You cannot unmake this choice, boy. The only question now is what you will do with the power I offer." Ben's mind raced. Power. The word hung in the air like a poisoned apple, tempting and terrifying. "I don't want your power," he said through gritted teeth. "I just want to be free of all of this." Mammon tilted his head, and though his face was still hidden, Ben could feel the sneer in his words. Freedom is an illusion. Power is the only currency that matters, and you, Ben Hezbolil, are no stranger to its allure. Look at you, clutching that journal like a lifeline. You already crave what I can give you. You simply fear admitting it. Ben's hands clenched into fists. "I won't be your pawn," he said, his voice trembling but defiant. Mammon laughed again, the sound reverberating through the vault like an earthquake. "Oh, you misunderstand," he said, his tone almost amused. "I do not ask, I take. And I have chosen you, boy, because you are exactly what I need. You are clever, resourceful, ambitious, and most importantly, you believe you can outwit me. That belief will drive you to achieve great things in my name, whether you realize it or not." Ben's heart sank. He could feel the weight of Mammon's will pressing down on him, an inexorable force he could not resist. "And if I refuse?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Mammon's form loomed larger, his voice booming with finality. "You will find that refusal is not an option. But take solace in this. I do not seek to control you, Ben Hezbolil. I seek to invest in you. And like all investments, I expect a return. Do as I bid, and the rewards will be beyond your imagining. Defy me, and, well, let us simply say that my patience is not infinite." Ben hesitated, his mind a whirlwind of fear, anger, and reluctant curiosity. He hated the idea of serving Mammon. But a part of him, the part that had always longed to escape his father's shadow, saw an opportunity. If he could harness this power for his own ends, perhaps he could turn the tables on Mammon some day. "I accept," he said finally, his voice low but steady. "But know this, I'll take your power and I'll use it. But I won't be your puppet, not forever." Mammon chuckled, the sound rich with satisfaction. "Spoken like a true Mammonkin. Go forth then and build your fortune. The path ahead will not be easy, but I have no doubt you will walk it well." With a wave of Mammon's hand, the vault dissolved, and Ben found himself back by his campfire, the journal once again in his hands. The fire burned low, its green hue fading back to normal. Ben stared into the flames, shaken but resolute. He had made a deal with the devil, but in his mind, it was a deal he intended to twist to his advantage. Unbeknownst to him, however, Mammon's laughter still echoed faintly in the back of his mind, as though the Lord of Greed knew exactly how the story would unfold. With the wealth he had stolen, Ben eventually reached Titan, where he began a new life as a merchant. Yet the memories of that night stayed with him, driving him to piece together the fragments of the mystery that had shaped his family's fate. And though he wore a mask of confidence and charm, He knew that the shadows of Alum and of Mammon were never far behind.